Empower Radio presents Out of the Fog. Join intuitive guide and spiritual teacher Karen Hager for lively, positive conversation with light workers, healers, and dynamic wisdom keepers. Get ready for inspiration and connection. This is Out of the Fog on Empower Radio. Here's your host, Karen Hager.
Hello and welcome to Out of the Fog. I'm Karen Hager. Each week at this time, we gather for spiritual conversation and enlightening guests, and I'm glad you're here. Time and distance are no barrier to energy, and that means that no matter when you're listening, no matter how you found us, you are here for a reason. And I hope that something in the next hour sparks a change in you and helps you move forward. We talk a lot about spiritual awakening, but if something happened to you, if something big happened to you, how would you change your life as a result? Well, my guest on today's show is Garnet Schulhauser, and his transformative experience began when he was confronted on the street by a homeless man who turned out to be a wise spirit in disguise. This was the beginning of a far-flung spiritual journey for Garnet that revealed answers to his questions and our questions. His life was transformed from lawyer to messenger, and he's here today to bring us not only his story, but important information about the health and the well-being of our planet. Are you ready to meet him? Garnet Schulhauser is a retired lawyer who lives on Vancouver Island. He grew up on a small farm in Saskatchewan and practiced corporate law for more than 30 years with 2 blue-chip law firms. In 2008, he began a new career as an author. His first book, Dancing on a Stamp, was published in 2012, and his newest book, Dancing Forever with Spirit, continues the journey he began with his guide, with the goal of encouraging humans to stop their abuse of Mother Earth by embracing love and compassion. You can find out lots more about Garnet and his work at garnetschulhauser.com. Garnet, welcome to Out of the Fog.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, I think maybe where we should start is let's start on that mall. On that day when you stepped out of the office and you had a surprising encounter, what was going on that day? What kind of questions did you have as you stepped out to take that walk?
Well, that morning, as I recall, I had all the usual questions that I've had for most Monday mornings as I'm looking at my face in the mirror, all the eternal questions of life, Karen, such as, okay, well, who am I really? Why am I here? What's my life's purpose? And what happens to me when I die? And I'd been asking myself those questions over and over for a number of years. I'd been raised as a Roman Catholic, and I knew the answers to those questions that the Church had taught me when I was a child, but I had sort of rejected a lot of their answers a long time ago in their beliefs, and I was casting about and looking for some answers that I felt were the real truth, the ones that I could sort of grab onto and hold dear to my heart. And so those are the questions that had been swirling in my mind for a long time. When I took a stroll on the street that afternoon, a sunny afternoon in May. I was still practicing law, and I was walking down the street and thinking about these questions. They were rolling through my mind, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a homeless man just jumped out in front of me. Now, he looked like a typical homeless person. He had stringy, greasy hair and a scraggly beard and dirty, slept-in clothes. And instead of executing my usual tactic of going around these people by making a quick sidestep, I just stood there and basked in his gaze because he had these amazing, sparkling, dazzling blue eyes that shone sort of like 2 little blue stars shining out of his forehead. And his gaze was doing 2 things to me at once. The first part was that he seemed to be penetrating deep within me into the depths of my soul, and I felt like he knew everything about me, everything I'd ever said and done. He knew everything in my history, and I had no idea how he would know this because we had never met. And so I didn't feel violated, though, because at the same time, his gaze was sending this amazing gush of pure, unconditional love towards me, and it was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security and well-being. And so I stood there like a deer caught in the headlights. And I'm not sure how long I was there. I could have been in a time warp, don't know. And finally, he broke the spell the homeless man did by saying to me, "Why are you here?" And then he quickly disappeared into a nearby store. Well, it took me a few minutes to collect my wits, and when I did, I realized that I had to go and find this man, find out who he was and why he had stopped me. So I went into the store he had disappeared into, couldn't find him. There was only one entrance and exit, and he had not come out, but he wasn't in the store. I walked up and down the street for a while trying to find him, but to no avail. And so I resolved that evening that I had to go back to the same street, the same time, the next day, and see if I can spot him again. And so I did, back on the same street the next day, walked up and down, and just when I was about to lose hope of finding him, I spotted him sitting all by himself on a bench. So I walked up to him and I said, "Who are you, and why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you, and I'm here to answer your questions and help you on your journey." Well, then my skeptical lawyer brain kicked in, Karen, and I said to him, "So why do you think you can help me when it looks like you can't even help yourself? Because it looks like you've been sleeping on the street for weeks and you smell like a dead fish." Mm-hmm. Well, he just gave me a big grin and said, "Looks can be very deceiving because you look like you're a successful lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade." He said, "If you want to turn around and go back to your office, you can see if you can find all the answers you've been searching for on all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down and have a chat with me." So luckily, my intuition kicked in, and it told me, it actually screamed at me that I had to sit down and talk with this guy because what did I have to lose, a half an hour of my time? So I did, sat down, and we began a conversation, a dialogue, which went on for several months after that. And I found out early on that he told me his name was Albert and that he was one of my spirit guides in disguise, and he had come to answer my questions, the ones that I've been asking myself over and over for many years. And so that was sort of the beginning of this long series of conversations we had. He appeared to me in physical form, Karen, as the homeless man only the first 3 times. And after that, he was just a voice in my head, and we communicated by telepathy. And when I asked him why he had decided to show up for the first few occasions as the homeless man, he said, well, he wanted to ease me into the conversation because if he had just started talking to me as a voice in my head, I may have thought I was losing my mind. And so this way, I sort of, when he spoke as a voice in my head, I recognized his voice, recognized who he was, and I felt very comfortable in talking to him in that fashion. So it was a start to an amazing series of encounters with my spirit guide, and it was an amazing transformation in my life because right after I met Albert, I just realized that practicing law didn't seem to have any point for me anymore. And I actually retired about 1 year after I first encountered him, retired from the law, moved out to the west coast of Canada, and then I had to struggle with the whole idea about writing the book. Albert had actually asked me to write a book about our conversation so that everyone could hear what he had to say. And I struggled with this a bit. I'd never written the book before, so I didn't know how to go about it. But when I finally decided, well, I should go ahead and do this, that resulted in me writing the manuscript for Dancing on a Stamp, which is my first book.
Was it difficult to put yourself, to kind of come out of the closet that way as a spiritual guy, even though you were the buttoned-up lawyer? Here you are speaking telepathically with your guides, and as we'll hear as we talk more about your journeys, you go on amazing journeys with Albert, and there's so much information. Were you a little worried about what would happen if you wrote this down?
Absolutely. One of my biggest struggles after I had written my manuscript was, what do I do with it? Do I just chuck it in a drawer somewhere never to be seen, or do I seek a publisher? And I really had to struggle with that for quite a while because I knew that my former law partners and colleagues and clients and a lot of my friends back in in the city that I practiced in would be totally amazed and surprised that I could have, come out of the spiritual closet and written a book like Dancing on a Stamp. And I was afraid that some of them would think that I had become senile and I'd lost my mind. Others would maybe vehemently disagree with what I'd said in my book and shun me. So all those fears were there. And of course, having spent all my years as you say, as a buttoned-up, a straight-laced lawyer, this was really quite a change for me, and I needed to really resolve it in my own mind that I could deal with it. After I dealt with it for it was for several months that I had to struggle with the issue. I finally decided, I really had to get the book published, because if I didn't, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And so I took the leap. And as you say, I came out of the spiritual closet. It was there for everyone to see. And I wasn't surprised that some of my former colleagues have shunned me. They haven't really told me that they think I'm crazy, but I suspect that's what they're thinking. Mm-hmm. But there's been a lot of them as well who surprised me by saying, good for you. It took a lot of courage for you to write that book, and thanks for doing it. So it was really a mixed bag, pretty much what I expected, Karen. And I've never looked back. I don't regret for a second publishing my book, Dancing on a Stamp.
I think so often fear stops us from telling the truth even when we know what it is. And that it's so important for people to speak out. When you have a story, an encounter, a message, as you do many messages, I'm really glad that you overcame that worry. And it makes sense. I was talking with someone the other day who had kind of come out as a spiritual practitioner, and the way that it changed the way people treated her at her kid's school. And I mean, and yet it's important to tell the truth. It's important to have that courage to say what it is that you're being given, no matter what that is.
Yeah, absolutely, entirely agree. Albert was he was persistent but very gentle in coaxing me along the way to work up the courage to go ahead and write and publish this book. But what I found out since is that you can never sort of you always have to follow what Spirit wants, because eventually they're going to wear you down and get you to do what they want you to do. And so it was sort of inevitable that I was going to write this book, and it's just a matter of whether I write it right away or wait for 2 years. But Albert was very gently persuasive, and he really basically said, "Look, we've chosen you as one of our messengers to get our message out to humanity. We have many, many messengers all over the world. You're just one of them, but every one of you is important, and so we don't want to lose any of you, and we want you to do your best to get the message out. And if you lose a few friends along the way, that's just part of the price you have to pay." And I, and looking back on it, Karen, I do agree with it. I think it was I'm very happy with my decision to publish my book, and I'm glad that Albert was persistent in sort of gently moving me along the path.
I know that one of the things that you learned through your connection with Albert is that we have life plans, and that as we come into these bodies, we bring with us life plans. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. I often connect with people, Garnet, who are afraid that not only that they're not connected with their life plan, but they're terrified of getting it wrong. And that sometimes keeps them from actually taking action, because they're afraid of what will happen if they choose the wrong thing or don't follow the life plan correctly.
Well, as you say, we all prepare life plans before we incarnate on this planet. And the goal of our life plans is to encounter things and experience things on Earth that we need for our evolution as souls. And it's different for every soul. We're all different. We're all on different paths. We all have different histories. So we tailor our life plans to based upon what we've experienced in previous lives, previous incarnations, and in terms of what we need to learn, or lessons that we didn't learn before that we need to re-encounter. So that's the goal of our life plans. But our life plans don't, as you mentioned, they don't etch our lives in stone. They don't predetermine our lives, because once we get here, we don't remember what's in our life plan, or even that we have one, and we have free will to take actions and make decisions. And that's very deliberate. That's just one of the big challenges of life on Earth. And so because we have the free will to take actions, and we don't remember where the road we're supposed to be on, very often we stray off course, make mistakes, take a wrong direction. But that is not a problem, because no matter what kind of life we live, no matter how far off our course we stray, every experience we encounter in our lives is a learning experience, contributes to our wisdom, and at the end of the day, we can never sort of go totally wrong or become lost, because we'll always end up back on the spirit side from where we came. And if we missed some of the lessons, took some wrong turns in our life, we can come back as many times as we want until we are satisfied that we've learned all the lessons we need to evolve and graduate from the earth plane.
Does that mean that there isn't punishment or judgment after we drop our bodies for the things that we've done while we were here?
That's exactly right, and that really flies in the face of what a lot of organized religions have been preaching for centuries. So when we die, we don't meet our Maker and receive a judgment about what we've done on earth, and if we're bad, we aren't sent to a horrible place called hell, because the source or God doesn't make rules for us to follow and doesn't judge us when we pass over to the other side, and there is no punishment and there is no hell. Those are all just inventions of organized religions. So no matter what we do, we won't suffer any punishment, and the only person who will judge us for what we've done in our past life is ourselves. Because when we cross over, we'll have a life review where we'll look back on all the things that happened in our life, all the things we did, the good things and the bad things, and then we'll sort of, as a learning tool, we'll look at that and say, okay, well, I could have done this better. Next time I will do that better, and it helps us with planning our next incarnation. So no judgment, no punishment, and there is no hell, which is really quite comforting to a lot of people.
What are your feelings about organized mainstream religion and the way that I can see how through the beliefs that you express in Dancing on a Stamp and Dancing Forever with Spirit, that there might be a feeling that organized religion kind of keeps people in line, tight little boxes, keeps us from seeing as far as maybe we should be able to see.
That's certainly my view, and I certainly got that reinforced from Albert. He said, the most organized religions, they have a bunch of rules made by their religious holy men. They claim the rules are coming from God, but Albert says, no, they're not. They're man-made rules, and they're designed to control the masses through guilt and fear. And so they establish all these rules, and they tell their followers that they have to follow those rules because they came from God. If they don't follow them, God will be offended, and God may punish you. That's a great way of keeping people in line, and that story has been sold to humans, over the centuries by many different organized religions. And I know in particular, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I know what the Catholic beliefs and dogma were, and they're very much of the same ilk. The men who followed Jesus after he was crucified, who established the church and made its rules and beliefs, they were following their own agenda. All the rules and beliefs that we currently have today in the Catholic Church, and I'm no longer a practicing member, but that the church now has, they were all developed by men, and they didn't come from Jesus, they didn't come from God, but they claim that they do, and that's sort of the force that gives them the force of authority to spring on the people of the church. So it's very much so. It's a mechanism to control people through guilt and fear. And once people realize that, okay, God is not like the Christian God, the way they depict him to be, like an old man sitting on a gold throne in the sky, manipulating events and handing out rewards and punishment. Once they realize that that's just a fiction, and that God or the source doesn't control our lives and doesn't make rules, then we're free to sort of live our lives as best we can, trying to follow our path to the extent we can realize what it is, and knowing full well that you can never go totally wrong because you're always going to end up back on the spirit side. So that's, for me, as a Reformed Christian, a former Christian, that's really very comforting.
Garnet, how can we then live our lives to be in greater alignment with the divine, to overcome those man-made rules or that fear of judgment or the fear that keeps us from speaking the truth? How are we meant to live while we're here to keep that divine connection?
Well, what we need to try to do as best we can is to follow the coaching and the messages we get from our spirit guides, because every one of us has, 2 or 3 or sometimes many more spirit guides. Their role, their souls on the spirit side, their role is to basically follow what we're doing and to give us some coaching and to send us messages at crucial points in our lives to steer us back on the course that we have planned for ourselves. The difficulty is that their messages, unlike my communication with Albert, which is a very much of a one-off situation designed to allow me to write my books, in most cases our guides send us messages that are very subtle. They're like flashes of intuition, whispers in our minds, gut feelings, coincidental events, things like that. That for the most part, we have difficulty recognizing them for what they are, and mainly because our minds are so cluttered with other thoughts about what happened last week and last year and what's going to happen tomorrow. And so we really the goal we should try to achieve here is to try to quiet our minds so we can listen to these messages. They will help us try to get us back on the course we had steered for ourselves. And that's really what we have to try to do, because we really want to get the most out of our lives on Earth while we're here. And even though we can go back as often as we want, nobody wants to keep on incarnating on Earth forever. So we all want to graduate sooner rather than later. And the way to help ourselves is to try to listen to what our guides are telling us.
Now, I know that Albert shared with you that when we are sleeping, that we actually go to the spirit side, and that's a chance for us to connect with our guides. Can you say a little bit about what that's like? Does that mean everybody, even though we may not know we're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Every single one of us, our souls, when our physical bodies are asleep, our souls leave our bodies temporarily, and they can go to the spirit side, as they frequently do, and there they can consult with their guides, and the discussion is really, okay, so where are we so far in my life plan? Where have I gone off course? How can I get back on course? And so there's a general discussion, and at that time you can actually make modifications, changes to your life plan. So your life plan, the one that you developed before you're born, isn't etched in stone. You can actually change it as you go along through life, depending on what you experience or didn't experience. So it's a bit of a moving target. So every one of us does that. We're just not allowed to remember it. And I was fortunate enough to remember some of my astral travels with my spirit guide Albert, because that was very deliberate. They wanted me to remember so I could write about it. But for the most part, humans don't remember these nightly excursions, but they happen to everyone every night, and they're actually a very valuable part of our learning process for our lives on Earth.
The name of your first book is Dancing on a Stamp. And what I'm thinking about, Garnet, as I listen to you, is how small our world is and how large the world of spirit is. And can you share what that title means, Dancing on a Stamp, why you chose that title for the first book?
Well, it occurred during one of my dialogues with Albert, and for some reason, I had been complaining about something that wasn't going right in my life at that stage. And he said, you really got to regard life on Earth as though you're in this big, beautiful ballroom. And there's, you're standing on a gleaming hardwood floor, and there's a dance band that's playing wonderful dancing music. And all the souls around you, all the people around you are swirling and dancing and swaying and exploring the whole ballroom. But he said to me that I spent too much of my life standing on one spot like I had leg shackles on. And he said I needed to break those shackles and to quit dancing on a stamp. And he told me that, and I thought that phrase really stuck out of my mind. It really sort of an unusual phrase. And so when I was casting about trying to think of a title for my book, that phrase kept on popping into my mind. And I asked him one time, Albert, would that be a good title for my book? And he said, yes, it would. And so that's the title for my first book, Dancing on a Stamp.
Wonderful. Now, as we were just about to go into the break, but I want to be sure that we spend time in the second half of the program on some of the astral journeys that you took with Albert and the places you went and the things that you saw and the messages that you bring back. As we're still looking at the book Dancing on a Stamp, though, it seems to me that the message in this book is one of tremendous hope, of an ability to tap into our freedom, that when we shift our awareness, there's so much more there for us than we can see. Do you think, Garnet, that everybody has an Albert?
Well, everybody has spirit guides for sure, but as I said, they don't necessarily have a direct communication with their human the same way that Albert does with me. And this is my case. It was a special case, so I could write my books. But everyone has an Albert-like spirit guide who are there for you. They're always there. They're on duty 24/7. And the real challenge is just for us to be able to tap into what they're telling us, receive their guidance, and try to act accordingly. And so that's one of the challenges of life on Earth, and it's and unfortunately it's not going to change. As Albert tells me, our planet is one of the toughest schools in the universe, and that's one of the reasons why it is.
You're listening to Out of the Fog with Karen Hager, and I'm in conversation with Garnet Schulhauser. He's the author of Dancing on a Stamp and Dancing Forever with Spirit. You can find out more about Garnet and his work at garnetschulhauser.com. We'll be right back after this.
Do you get tired of styling your hair every day? And do you want a good hairstyle every day? Hi, I'm Sarah Schuster. I went on a website called inventnow.org, and after that, I decided to invent something too. Something called the Insta-Do. Just imagine, you just put it over your head like a helmet does, and you pick your hairstyle with the buttons on the side. Then you can have instant hairstyle in seconds. People like it. People like Jeff Bart.
I like it.
And people like Kenneth.
It's this helmet thing, and it fits over your head, and it's great.
Thank you, Kenneth. You should go to inventnow.org, and it could help you come up with your own invention. After all, look at me on the radio now.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions, or just play some games at inventnow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Hey, Larry, mind if I sit down?
Nope.
This coffee tastes like coffee. So what's going on?
Not much.
What's new?
Not much.
Okay, but can you please put the newspaper down while you say not much?
What newspaper?
This newspaper. Oh, dude. What happened to your face? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Ow.
Dude, what is this? 11 pieces of toilet paper stuck to your face?
I'm shaving in the dark to save energy. I'm helping the environment.
That's a dangerous way to help the environment.
Well, sometimes you have to sacrifice yourself for the greater good.
Dude, there's an easier and safer way to help the environment without sacrificing yourself. Go green, go public. Take public transportation. It's good for the environment, and you won't have to live behind a newspaper.
Wow.
But for now, put the newspaper back up.
A message from the public transportation systems across the country. To learn more, visit publictransportation.org.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home where I belong. I'm home, and I love it. I'm home where I belong.
It's always nice to come home. But these days, many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Fortunately, help is available. Making Home Affordable is a free program from the U.S. government that has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners, and we want to help you.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home.
Find out now what your options are. Go to makinghomeaffordable.gov or call 1-888-995-HOPE. The sooner you act, the better chance we can help you.
I'm home, where I belong.
Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
And now back to Out of the Fog with Karen Hager on Empower Radio. EmpowerRadio.com.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. I'm Karen Hager, and I'm in conversation with Garnet Schulhauser. He is the author of Dancing on a Stamp, and his new book is Dancing Forever with Spirit. Now, if you want to explore more about Garnet and his work, you're going to want to check out his website. Now, here comes the spelling. You guys, are you ready? This is important so that you can get to the right place. It's garnetschulhauser.com. That's GarnetSchulhauser, garnetschulhauser.com. And of course, you are always welcome to stop by KarenHager.com. I'd love to hear your feedback on this show. Have you ever had an encounter that changed your life? Have you ever met someone who maybe was a spirit in disguise? I'd love to hear about your transformative spirit experiences, your spiritual awakenings. You can always reach me through my website, KarenHager.com. Now, Garnet, after Dancing on a Stamp was published, was there a time that you didn't hear from Albert?
Yeah, there was a period of months where he had sort of disappeared from my life, Karen. I wasn't sure why. And Albert never really explains himself as to when he's coming and when he's going. So I was sort of in the dark a bit. He did tell me, though, that after my first book that I was to write books 2, 3, 4, and maybe even 5. And so I was just pacing around waiting for him to return because I needed his input, his wisdom, obviously, for my second book. And so after a couple months, I was beginning to really be concerned about whether he disappeared permanently from my life. And then it happened. He actually, one night I was sleeping, and I heard a noise or something and made me sit up in bed. And I looked towards the bedroom door, and there was this ghost-like ethereal figure standing there in the doorway. And as it moved closer to the foot of my bed, I could then recognize what it was. It was my old friend Albert in his homeless man disguise, but in astral form. So I sat up and I said, "Hi, Albert, how are you doing, and what's up?" And he said, "Well, I think it's time for your second set of adventures with me so that you can write about what you see and who you talk to in your second book." And he said, "I'm going to take you on some astral adventures, and we're going to go to the spirit side and meet some people there. I'll take you to other places in the universe, and all for the purpose of giving you some wisdom and insight to the operations of the universe and the spirit side so that you can write about them and pass on my messages to all of humanity." So I said, "Oh, great, Albert, but, do I have to tell my wife where I'm going, and do I need a passport, and, how does all this work?" And he said, "Well, no, we're traveling astrally, and you will be back in your body before morning, and your wife won't even know that you were gone." So I said, "Okay." So he reached out, grabbed my hand, and literally pulled my astral body out of my physical body. I turned around and looked back, and there my physical body was still sound asleep in bed beside my wife and my little dog. And I said, "Okay, well, that seems to work okay, so where to now?" So he motioned, took me by the hand, and we floated up through the ceiling, up through the clouds, and ended up hovering at a point high above our beautiful planet Earth. And he let me turn around and look back, and that's the first time I've ever seen our beautiful planet from that perspective, Karen. And it was breathtaking. It was like a jeweled pendant, floating in a sea of black ink. It was really quite amazing, and it's something that I wish every human could see because it would give them a totally different perspective of our planet and Mother Earth. But anyway, he didn't let me dwell on that for too long because he said we have things to do and people to meet. And so he then guided me through this shimmering doorway that seemed to be hanging out there in space, and we ended up on the spirit side. And the first step into the spirit side, I found myself in this beautiful meadow, incredibly beautiful meadow with lush green grass and tall, majestic trees and thousands of wildflowers resplendent in many, many different colors I've never seen before on Earth, with amazing perfume wafting up. So it was one of the prettiest meadows I've ever seen in my life. And we walked along the pathway and up a small hill, and at the top of the hill, I noticed at the bottom of the hill on the other side, there was a group of people that seemed to be waiting for me. And as we walked closer, my heart skipped a beat because I recognized all of these people. They were my mother, my father, my brother, my grandparents, and some of my aunts and uncles who had passed over from the earth plane. So it was an amazing sort of welcoming party. There was even my little dog, Oscar, who had passed away 10 years before, who came running from behind the group towards me with his little tail wagging his whole body. He was so happy to see me. So it was an amazing welcoming party. With one little proviso, I was a bit apprehensive about what my mother would say when she met me, because my mother was a very religious Roman Catholic lady. She was a feisty Irish lady who was determined while on earth to make sure that her husband and her 5 children all made it to heaven, even if she had to drag us kicking and screaming. So she was a very determined lady, and I was concerned because what I had written about the Catholic Church in my book, Dancing on a Stamp, was not kind to the Church, and I was wondering what she would think. Well, she allayed my fears, Karen. She said to me immediately, don't be concerned, because if I was still back on the earth plane, I would have been very unhappy with what you wrote about the Church. But now that I'm on the spirit side, I can see the whole picture, and I applaud you for what you did, and I encourage you to keep on going with Albert. So that was a relief. We then had warm hugs all around, and Albert soon pulled me away and said, "You can have further reuniting with your family sometime later on the spirit side, but we have business to do, and I need to take you into this city called Aglaia, where we're going to meet with the Council of Wise Ones. So he then led me off in the distance. I could see this gleaming white city that was one of the cities on the spirit side. And we entered through the main entrance portal and then strolled down the main boulevard, which was quite amazing in and of itself, Karen, because I felt like I'd been dropped into a costume ball, because there were many souls strolling on this boulevard. They were all happy and smiling and having a great time, but they were all dressed in different garb and attire, very colorful, from many different eras and countries on Earth. And Albert explained to me that these people, that souls on the spirit side, can choose to appear to others in any form they want, and they can change it as often as they want. And he said quite often souls will choose to wear the attire from one of their favorite past lives on Earth. And that's why all the diversity. So it was really quite an amazing scene. And then we soon proceeded down the street and went into the Hall of Wisdom and into a big chamber where Albert introduced me to the Council of Wise Ones.
Who are the Council of Wise Ones? What message did they have for you?
Well, the Council of Wise Ones is a committee of 11 very wise and advanced souls, and their job is to oversee the incarnations on our planet. And so the message I got from the chair of this committee, her name was Sophia, was that they wanted me to take a message back to my fellow humans, and the core of the message was that humans, you're at a very advanced stage of civilization. You have very advanced technology, but your emotional intelligence has not kept up, and that means that there's too many negative emotions on your planet that aren't controlled. Emotions like fear, anger, hate, greed. And these emotions tend to run amok, and they cause a lot of damage, a lot of harm, a lot of strife, conflicts, wars, murders, and so on. And she said that we're at a major inflection point in our development, and we're at a stage now where we're either going to end up destroying all life on our planet if we don't move up the spiritual ladder, or we're going to change the course that we're currently on and move towards increasing our vibrations and trying to move up the vibratory ladder so that we can eventually end up in a wonderful place called the New Earth. And she said that their concern right now is that our civilization is at a stage similar to some of the other civilizations on Earth, the human civilizations in the past, like Atlantis and Lemuria, who rose up to a very high level and ended up destroying themselves. And they were really concerned that our civilization now didn't do the same. And so their plea to humanity that they wanted me to take back and write about in my book was that we really need to discard and control our negative emotions. We need to embrace love and compassion, for ourselves, for all other humans, for the other creatures on our planet, and for our planet herself, in order to allow us to raise our vibrations and take the next step up the evolutionary ladder. So that was really the big message: is that we want you to help by spreading our message to your fellow humans. They told me that they are channeling their message through a lot of different people on Earth. People like yourself, Karen, radio and TV show hosts, people who write books and blogs, people who speak at public gatherings. They have numerous messages all over the Earth, and they're really doing a full court press right now to try to get as many people spreading their message so that we can really get past this crucial period in our development and advance before we end up crashing and burning like some of the other civilizations.
Now, as I understand the idea of the New Earth, as you spell it out in your book, the New Earth already exists, right? So does it exist in another dimension, or how is it that the New Earth and the Old Earth exist at the same time?
Well, the New Earth it does exist right now concurrently with our old Earth, our present Earth. It's just in a higher dimension, in a much higher state of vibration, and so because of the higher vibration, we can't see it or detect it, but it is there. And I actually got, in one of my astral trips, I got to visit the New Earth, Karen. Albert took me there, and what he wanted to do was just to show me sort of this is what we should all aspire to achieve, to get to the New Earth, and sort of encourage us to really focus on where we should be heading and try to help us discard our negative emotions and prevent us from destroying ourselves. So it was really a sort of the pot at the end of the rainbow he was showing me. It's an amazing place. It looks exactly like our current Earth, and I visited with one of the civilizations there who were descendants from a civilization that used to exist on our old Earth many years ago. They used to have a village in Central America where they existed and lived a fairly happy life, and they managed to arrange for a mass ascension of all their citizens to escape an encroaching barbarian army that was coming closer and closer every day with the intent of conquering them and perhaps enslaving them. So they managed to do a mass ascension up to the new Earth. Their descendants were the ones I talked to, and they were. It was a very idyllic life, Karen. They had no crime or conflicts. They lived in harmony with their planet, didn't pollute their planet. They lived in harmony with the other creatures on the planet, didn't kill the other creatures, did not eat animal flesh. All the food they got was from a liquid form developed from the plants that grew naturally in their forest. They had learned to slow down the aging process. They had learned how to effectively ward off all diseases and how to repair body tissue if they suffer trauma. So the end result was they all lived for 200 or 300 years in a very happy state where they didn't have to work and they could pursue acquiring knowledge and wisdom and enjoying the splendor of their planet. So it was a wonderful place, especially when you compare it to all the strife and conflict and negative emotions we have on our Earth, and it's really a place where we should all aspire to go to. And Albert said that humans can get there. All we have to do is raise our vibrations to a rate that will match the new Earth, and we can get there. And many people have already done this. Some do it in groups, some do it individually, but it's certainly open for all of us. But we have some obstacles to overcome. But it was a great sort of a goal for us to try to achieve. And I wish everyone could have seen the beauty and the splendor and the wonder of the new Earth, Karen, because that would certainly encourage everyone to try to get their act together and try to find a way of raising their vibrations and getting to this wonderful place.
Albert also took you to other planets, other worlds, other places. And I'm especially struck, there's so much in this book, there's no way we can get to it all, but I'm especially struck by the experience that you had with the spider beings, and the ideas about extraterrestrials and their connections with those of us who are here now on Earth. And I wonder if you can help take us a little bit into that. Well, a lot of people are aware that there have been a lot of sightings of UFOs for any number of years, and the official position of our governments are that they don't really exist. But Albert said, yeah, they do. Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial races for eons, right from day one, and they're all here to monitor what's going on Earth and to help us, develop our civilization, develop our technology, and to get to the eventual point of arriving at the new Earth. One of the trips he took me to was to sort of go back to how life originated on Earth, was to a planet called Xeron, where all their cities were underground because their star had become a red giant and had sort of basically burned off all the vegetation on their planet. So the surface was barren. They lived underground, and these creatures were very intelligent. They looked a bit like spiders to me, and they showed me sort of their main function in the scheme of things, which was there was a big room full of it looked like computer monitors to me. The main creature there said that their job was to monitor all the planets in our galaxy to ascertain when they might be ready to receive life. And when they find a planet that's ready for life, they notify the Galactic Council, which is the council that oversees the seeding of life in our galaxy, and then they will arrange to have ETs with faster-than-light spacecraft transport life from one planet to the new planet. And they said that was how Earth was first seeded with life, was that they had detected that Earth's atmosphere and other conditions were ready for life. And so the seeding began initially with very small microbes and organisms
eventually ended up with them seeding humans on Earth. And so that was their role, and they were sort of very instrumental in populating Earth with human beings. Then I went to visited another race that was in a spacecraft orbiting our planet, and they were from the planet Nibiru, and they were humanoid beings with gray skin and oblong heads, large eyes, and their job was to hang around Earth and monitor what was going on. And they've been doing this for right since the beginning of life on our planet. And they had watched, human civilizations, as I mentioned before, Atlantis, Lemuria, and a few others, rise up to great levels and then destroy themselves. And they were concerned, as was the Council of Wise Ones, that humans right now are at a similar stage, and they really, really wanted to help us get over the hump so that we could move up to the next stage before we destroyed all life on our planet. And they had, over time, they had helped us by giving us inspiration and technical know-how on technological advances to help us, improve our life and move on up through the technological stages. But they were restricted by the directive of non-interference so that they could not just go and destroy all of our weapons or stop all the wars and the conflicts. They weren't allowed to interfere like that. And so they had to give us help in very subtle ways. And so they had to watch the other civilizations in the past destroy themselves, and they really did not want to see it happen again. And so they were there. They're very benevolent. Some of their craft are the ones that people see and claim to be UFOs. And they're very real. They're there. And they're just one of several civilizations from other planets that have been monitoring developments on Earth and trying to help us wherever they can.
Garnet, are there extraterrestrials who are not benevolent?
No, I asked Albert that question. Well, first of all, I should say there aren't any that have visited Earth who aren't benevolent. He says that every one of the races that's here is here to help us. They have no evil intentions. He said, they have very superior technology. If they had wanted to wipe out humans, they could have done so a long time ago, but that's not their intention. He did say that there are some races in the universe, in our galaxy even, that are not too dissimilar from humans, being sort of warlike and barbaric, but those races have not yet ventured towards Earth, and so they're not a concern to us right now. But the Galactic Council is monitoring those people, and they will take action if they ever do sort of break out and reach for the stars. And they would also do the same for humans if we ever develop faster-than-light craft and decide to head out and cause havoc. They have the capability of stepping in and preventing us from harming, harmless other societies that are peace-loving and don't want any conflict.
When we hear stories of people who feel that they have been abducted by aliens or had intrusive physical examinations, or there are all those scary stories about extraterrestrials, how does that fit in? Why are we experiencing it in that way if what it is benevolent?
Well, the abductions, so-called abductions, do happen, Karen, and Albert said it's just their way of making physical examinations to ascertain the stage of our biological developments. Sometimes they implant communication devices and monitoring devices so they can keep better track of the people they are following. But it's all intended to be helpful to humanity and not hurtful to these people. The unfortunate thing is that sometimes these people do remember some parts of their abduction, and they find it frightening. Mm-hmm. But generally, the aliens will try to plant screening memories in the minds of the people who are abducted so as that they don't remember all the details of their abduction, because it can be frightening. It's an unfortunate event, but they really don't intend us any harm, and they try the best to shield us from these memories. But sometimes some of them leak through, particularly when some of the abductees go under hypnotic regression, when they can sort of remember all the details of their abductions. That's when it all comes out, and the people just have to sort of take it in the light in which it is given, which is they're trying to help us, they're not trying to hurt us, and it's all for the higher good. So Hopefully someday the ETs will make themselves more open to all people, and we'll all realize that they are really friendly and benevolent, and we have nothing to fear, and that will be a very happy state. But we're not there yet, and they haven't revealed themselves yet because they don't think we're ready for that at this stage.
I don't think we are ready. I think that we, I don't know how we'd react. I don't think we are ready. Do you?
I don't think so either, and I agree with them. And Albert said at some point in the future we will be ready to accept that, but right now we're not. So that's why they don't have open contact. When people see their craft, it's because the ETs are allowing some of the people to view their craft. They do this deliberately. They could be totally invisible if they wanted to, but they're trying to gently ease us into the transition where there'll be open contact. And so there have been more and more sightings as the years have gone on, and there will be more in the future, and eventually it'll just be open to everyone, hopefully at a stage where that knowledge doesn't cause panic or distress to all the humans on our planet.
Are you still journeying with Albert?
Yes, I am. Well, not right at this exact second, but after my journeys that I described in my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit, he did come back later and took me on another set of astral journeys, and this time we went to different places in the universe. He took me to the spirit side to meet a number of different souls who had lives on Earth, some very interesting, some were very famous people, and I wrote about those in my third book, which is called Dance of Heavenly Bliss. And that book is in the process of being published, Karen. It's likely to be released sometime in late 2015 or early 2016, and that sort of is the second set of my astral adventures with my spirit guide, Albert. And I'm told by Albert that the fourth book is definitely on order, and maybe even 5 and 6. So I'm just waiting for my marching orders from Albert.
Is it? I hope this isn't a silly question. You're all night. You're on astral travels with Albert. When you wake up, are you exhausted?
No, actually, I feel incredibly refreshed. It's just like I've had a wonderful night's sleep, and so I'm very refreshed. But I very vividly remember all the details of my astral trip, which is why I know that I wasn't dreaming, because the details are so vivid and clear, and they stay with me for days and weeks and even months after, which is something that dreams never do with me. So I know it was a real experience, and I remember them, and this is very intentional, because Albert wanted me to be able to, when I wake up in the morning, be able to sit at my keyboard and pound away and write down all the things that I saw that I can remember, so that I could write another book. And so it's very deliberate, but it's interesting. Another host asked me that recently about whether I'd be tired and exhausted, and I said no, absolutely, it's the opposite. I feel very refreshed.
Can you remind the listeners how they can get in touch with you and find out more? And I know you have some speaking engagements coming up as well, so how can people find out more?
Well, as you mentioned, from my website is the primary source, which is garnetschulhauser.com, or if they can't remember how to spell that, they can just Google Dancing on a Stamp, and my webpage will come up on the search page. So there's information about both of my books there. You can download a free excerpt. You can watch a book video, and there's buy links on my homepage where you can click on it, and you can get to all the popular online stores like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it'll take you right to the page where my books are featured so they can be bought. You mentioned I have a speaking engagement coming up, which is the 2015 Ozark Mountain Transformation Conference, which is held on July 17th to 19th of this year in Springdale, Arkansas. And this is a conference that's sponsored every year by my publisher, Ozark Mountain Publishing, Inc., and I will be one of the speakers there. So if people want to go to the Ozark Mountain Transformation website, they can get details on the schedule and how to buy tickets and so on.
Garnet, thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing. And we only just got a tiny way into all these experiences, all these journeys. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Karen. I enjoyed every minute.
Oh, me too. Thank you very much. That's Garnet Schulhauser. His new book is Dancing Forever with Spirit. He's also the author of Dancing on a Stamp. You can connect with Garnet, find out more about the books at garnetschulhauser.com. That's GarnetSchulhauser.com. AUSER.com. And of course, I welcome your feedback, your input at KarenHager.com. That's also a great place to find out about how you can connect with me, upcoming classes and events. I'm about to head out to California again. All that good stuff is there at KarenHager.com. And thank you for listening today. Together, we are spreading a little more light in the world, and a little more light is always a good thing. Until next time, I'm wishing you peace.